All right. Welcome to the Movement Podcast. We have our very own Trey Seals in the house. Mm-hmm. Trey is our lead acquisitions manager. He is a closer and a headhunter wrapped up in one. Native to Colombia, grew up in a pretty disciplined military type of household where he grew up with great work ethic, led to him playing college ball at UMass, where he was a linebacker. That's where I get the headhunter from, right? So excited to really dive in with some of your story, man, and we can kind of put together the pieces of how you fell into the acquisitions role and how your childhood and growing up has led to where you are today.
Definitely, man. It's good to be here. It's good to be here, man. It's been a good ride so far. So
this is long overdue.
Definitely.
So for the listeners, Trey's been with us 2.5 years.
Yeah.
A while now.
Yep.
Now, we shot this podcast about 1.5 years ago, right before COVID hit, and we rolled the whole thing. Come to find out, through technical difficulties, it didn't even grab it, right?
Gone.
And because of the craziness of life, Trey has a newborn baby. We have a baby at home as well. So as you can imagine, caught in the chaos, we haven't made the intention to get it done. But now that we're rolling out and we have the weekly podcast series, excited to get in here, man. And this is actually going to be one of my favorite podcasts because we can go a long way with it.
Yeah, we're finally here. Here.
So awesome. Let's talk about early childhood, right? Growing up in a military household. What was that like?
Man, it's just it's just a basically constantly moving, as a kid, especially. You always want to get those roots and, build your friends out, things like that. But it constantly makes you adjust.
Yeah.
So moving from being born in California, then moving to Germany, and then coming back to Tennessee, and then finally relocating here, which I say I'm, born and raised from Columbia, South Carolina, even though, we got here when I was 5. I love South Carolina through and through. But definitely when it comes to that, you have to constantly adjust and pivot. So that's helped a lot when it comes to adjusting and pivot when it comes to sellers on the acquisition side. But also being here, military background, it gives you that discipline. Father was in the military for 20 plus years, retired, and he's here locally working at as director at a hospital at Baptist. So having that discipline of just the simplest chores in the beginning between him and my mother, being on us to do chores, learning how to do things around the house, fixing things, all those different types of things that, the father-son relationship has growing up have definitely helped along the way.
I love it.
For sure.
So, of course, you grew up in a sports household, I'm assuming, right? Father probably always encouraged you. You have an older brother.
Yep.
So always probably encourage you guys to get in there, stay active, stay fit. When did you really catch the love for football?
Man, from the beginning. I actually started playing Pee Wee 3rd grade. So I've been in love with football my whole life. My dad's a Cleveland Browns fan, so they had a great year this year.
Man,
so
it's about time.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm homebred. I love anybody near us, so I'm a Panthers fan. But I've been playing since 3rd grade. Me and my brother, he played high school ball. I played high school ball. From there, since I was kind of a knucklehead in school, not in getting in trouble like suspended type of thing, but just being lazy, not focusing on my grades. So I had to go to prep school route. So I went ahead and went to Hargrave up in Virginia, Danville, small town in Chatham, right next to Danville, Virginia. So you can only imagine what that was like.
Yeah.
Just military. You had your barracks that you lived on. You woke up, had to do drill in the morning, 6 a.m. sharp. Had to have your fresh shave, dressed to the nines, basically in the uniform. So that even, bred it even more. It just forced that point that you need to be basically on point at all times.
Yeah. On
stage at all times. So that helped me. I think if I didn't go to prep school, I wouldn't have been prepared for college. If taking that gap year to go to prep school and play, I wouldn't have been prepared for college.
It was
mentally
necessary. Yeah. It's interesting. You look at these different seasons, and growing up in a highly structured, disciplined household, right? But because it's what you knew, it became comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And human beings were creatures of habit, right? So after we get in the routine of doing a certain task, whether it be sitting at home playing video games
Yeah.
or putting in the work in the gym, right? We become what we do most repeatedly, right? That's what habits are. And it's crazy how deep it really goes,
Yeah.
right? But diving into that, when we look at any successful entrepreneur or athlete, for example, right? I think the one resounding trait is discipline,
Mm-hmm.
right? It takes discipline to accomplish anything that you're seeking in life. And when we think about people that we love and adore, right? Or our favorite athletes or actors or people that we look up to in life, 99% of them are disciplined.
Yep.
Right? And I think that's something that we overlook a lot in this social media type of world, because we want to be comfortable. We want to do the fun stuff and stay away from the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But to truly create a life of purpose and to accomplish the results that we're seeking, we got to choose the hard stuff.
You need that.
Need it.
Like it's a constant. I know it's hard. Everybody just wants things right now.
Yeah.
But you have to have that discipline in your life.
Absolutely.
When it comes to anything. So obviously you may have, things that you're looking to do. Obviously everybody has goals.
Yeah.
So whether it's waking up in the morning, writing out your day, or, reading, getting your mind right, things like that, just to refresh your mind. And I know you talk about it being like a brain dump, just to, forget what happened yesterday, anything negative, and just focus on that fresh start. When you told me that made a big difference.
Yeah.
And that's another thing when it comes to being coachable.
Yeah.
So along with discipline, you need to be coachable.
Have to be. Yep. So coming into college, right? Long journey, got forced into prep military school, which prepped you for the big leagues,
Mm-hmm.
right? What did it look like when you stepped onto that college football field? Was there a higher level of expectations? What did the training regimens look like? What did the diet, and how did the coach lead the team overall?
Yeah, so basically, to give an overview of Division I, just sports or football, basically, and that's why I tell a lot of high school athletes, whatever, middle school, when you're coming up, just stay in this moment.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you get that scholarship, accept it, and go to college, it turns straight into a business. So you have to focus on being the best player you can, being coachable, because I've seen people with the greatest talent not be coachable, and they literally just ride the pine.
Their pride gets in the way.
Yep.
And it always comes before the fall, right?
Exactly. So you coming in, it turns straight to a business. So you need to focus on, when it comes to schedule, you have study hall, you have your tutors, you have workouts, of course, morning and afternoon workouts. Then in the summer it's 2-a-days. Like you run into a lot of things where you have to prioritize your school. You have to put the student first, because there's no saving you when it comes to not putting that first.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to focus on your grades, just to stay on the field, to be qualified.
If that dean's office don't write off, put the check mark on that list, you ain't playing.
No, not at all. So definitely you have to focus on that. Nutritionists, you have to meet with them and stay on your plan, your meal plan, tailored to you. So
that's incredible.
For me, example of being an outside linebacker, my metabolism was crazy. I think I was coming into college, I was probably 6'3", about 210, 215 as a linebacker. So obviously I had to put on weight. So I was pumping in calories, eating quite a bit. Obviously with UMass, shout out to UMass, we've been like the #1 dining hall for the last like 5 years in the country. So we had a lot of options that we had there. But it's just, a main thing is working on your schedule and prioritizing your time blocking.
That's big.
Yeah.
And another thing I pulled out of that is the way that the program was structured is they filled your schedule and your time with more coaches, whether it be a tutor, nutritionist, addressing every single angle that needed to prepare you to be the best version that you needed to be when you stepped onto the field.
Yep.
Right. And I think it's very, very much the same with life and business. Yep. Right. Most people don't believe in having a coach. Right. Most people probably don't go to marriage counseling. But it's one of those things that if you work on nourishing the relationship or building on yourself before it becomes a problem, then you're going to be much more adept to handle those hard decisions when they come, right? But if you're pushing your marriage aside, or you're pushing having a coach to level up to that next level in business, eventually you're going to fail, right? And because you haven't equipped yourself with those tools in your toolbox, you ain't got what it takes.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So another question I have, man, how many times through those seasons, right? Because I'm sure it was super tough, you know, a lot of heavy commitments, balancing school, workouts, practice. How many times did you feel like quitting?
Man, it was some tough times because our team, we didn't have the best record throughout my whole career there. So on top of the scheduling that your coaches put you on, and school, weighing those two, and then you tack on a losing season, there were plenty of moments where I just thought I'd, hang it up. But obviously, you talk with your parents, things like that, they get you back right. But there were plenty of times where I almost gave in. But that just comes back to working on your mindset and the discipline I had. I'm the type of person, and I got this from my father, if I'm starting something, I'm going to finish it.
Yep.
So I had no choice. So I went ahead, obviously, went through that whole course and graduated with my degree. Even though we did have those losing seasons, I look back at it, I had some of the greatest experiences in college. Met some great friends there that I still have to this day. Met my wife there, Renee. So, I have nothing but great memories there.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's those times and the moments that sometimes when it's difficult through those seasons, right, you don't see it as the building block for the future, right? But it's those moments as you look back in hindsight that actually meant the most, right? It's like, dang, it was tough, but golly, did it mold me into the person I am, right? And it's those things that shape our minds and our personalities into the machine that we are today, right?
Yeah. And then that kind of leads you to character.
Yeah.
You have to be a good character person. That those are things that, just when you make people feel a certain way or you carry yourself a certain way, that brings a lot of, brings a lot of weight, or holds a lot of weight, when people say, hey, what do you think about me, or what do you think about Trey?
Yeah.
It does carry a lot of weight.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. Being a good character person. And I know we can talk about that all day, but yeah.
Yeah. Character, man, your reputation will precede you, right? So protect your name. That's a mistake I made early on, right? Getting caught up in the wrong crowds, doing drugs, running down that lane, but redemption's real, but character is number one. That's one of the first traits that we look at before we bring anyone inside of the organization, right? We've had growing pains with it. We've had to let people go, different seasons, but character is number one, right? Because in many cases, your talent will take you places that your character is not ready for, right?
Yeah. It'll definitely open doors.
Yeah.
How people always talk about imposter syndrome. I've been in a lot of situations like that just based off my character. They say, he's a great guy, so I'm going to give him a shot. And I owe that to God.
Yeah.
Opening those doors for me. So even with this, position, being blessed, and, I know we're probably going to get into that, how we met and everything, but just being blessed, I owe that all to God.
Yeah.
For sure.
I love it. So one of the things, there's so many things that make Trey great, right? But the discipline and the commitment to becoming a greater version of himself, right? And then his commitment to character, are those traits that you just cannot replace, right? And no amount of training or work could ever amount to molding that inner person, that inner being, right? And so when he first came in the fold, it's interesting how it happened. We were looking for an acquisitions guy in Atlanta, right? And one of our old partners put some posts out on social media, just, hey, looking to hire an acquisitions guy, wah, wah, wah. Actually, let's rewind this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about where we linked up and how that came to be.
Yeah, so basically before acquisitions, I was working at the hospital in the billing lab, like in the lab billing. So from there, you're just sitting, basically one of those jobs, you're just at the desk all day repeating the same task for 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So obviously that's the perfect time to listen to podcasts. I wasn't dealing with customers, so I dove into all real estate investment podcasts, and one in particular I listened to was Max's podcast. He had Brent Moreno on, and he started talking about his first deal that he locked up in a neighborhood called Wildwood here, that's right across the street from where I grew up. So I was like, wait,
this guy's local?
Yeah, he's local.
Yeah.
Somebody's really doing this in my backyard.
Yep.
So found him on Facebook, messaged him, and he was like, I actually moved to Mississippi, but one of my guys is still there that I partner with, gave me your information, called you up, and that's just taking action. I was like, what would I have to lose?
Yeah.
So reached out to you. I think you had an appointment that following day, and you said, hey, you want to take a ride with me? I was like, all right,
Yeah.
let's do it. So we went down there. I think in that situation, that was a crazy introduction.
That was the best way to get your feet wet, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good point to taking action, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the bigger gaps is people are afraid to reach out, afraid to take an initiative and action to, bring people in the fold. But man, going to this day, so Trey reaches out, Brent Moreno referred my information, wanted to connect, see how we can get involved in the network. We went out to North South Carolina, right? North is a town in South Carolina. just so we're clear.
Right.
Interesting story. We had a contract on this property already. Some random lady reached out through our website, locked it up. So we take a trip out here. We're in the boondocks. We're somewhere in the sticks, right? Not a whole lot of anything going on. Maybe a gas station in that town. Had a contract on a house for $3,000. So we plugged it in the GPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drove out there, circled the block a couple times trying to figure out where it would be.
Yep.
Finally went down some little windy road and came up to this house.
Mm-hmm.
And the house had a number on it which aligned with the contract and the road. So we go up and knock on the lady's door, and she kind of wigged out. She's like, y'all are not going to take my house. I've been in this house for too long, blah 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 blah.
Calling the police, all that.
It was weird and funky. Great way for Trey to get involved in real estate. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? This lady's lying to me or what? So I look on public records. Sure enough, it's the right person's name that we're trying to sell, but I'm looking on the tax map. I'm like, something's not right here. There's like 2 houses lined up. So that same day we went to the tax office, right? Went to the GIS section and talked with some people internally. Come to find out that the addresses somehow had gotten switched, right, with the county. And the lady that was staying in that one house, they changed the numbers on it for whatever reason. The house we were looking to buy was right behind her lot, covered in trees, right? Just overgrown to all get up.
Yeah.
Long story short, there was nothing we could do with it, right? Had to walk on the contract. But man, that was a mission, dude.
Yeah. And that opened my eyes, and I was like, well, I was like, this must be as bad as you can get when it comes to an interaction with the seller. So I'm like, it's only gonna get better.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, man, and we've been rocking ever since.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. So I love tying the linebacker personality with acquisitions manager, right? Because we talk about this a lot. You're a headhunter, right? As a linebacker, you're scouting the line, you're watching the quarterback's eyes, waiting for that next play, and you're anticipating where he's going to go, right? On the acquisition side of real estate, you're facilitating communication, right? You're reading into the sellers, right? Almost like a playbook, going back to being coachable, right? Almost like a playbook, feeding off of the conversation that the sellers give you and utilizing those as tools to direct the conversation when it comes to negotiation, right? And I know when we really dove in, I think the one thing that I pressed upon you most was having, say it, service first mentality, service first, right? Yeah. That was the one thing, like I'd say over almost every sentence.
People service, over profit.
Yeah, service first mentality. Every person we come into contact with, ultimate goal is to identify the best ways that we can serve them, right? If you can figure that out in real estate investing, you'll never be hungry again, right? So you're reading into the conversation, right? Figuring out how you're going to angle that to best serve their unique situation. Now, obviously, if we're going to pay cash for a house, we can't pay market value.
Right.
People know that, right? More distress. If they need to sell quicker, obviously that comes with a lower purchase price. But I want to hear from you firsthand how you tie in, analyzing plays and going back to college football days, right? To the seat you're sitting in today, where you're really not only facilitating communication, talking with sellers, but you're also setting up the back end systems so that we have efficient follow-up process.
Yeah, so I like that. So taking it to college, basically every week is the same as far as preparation. So on, I think it was Sundays, that'll be our first meeting. We'll lock in on, in my case, either the quarterback, the skill positions, quarterback, receivers, running backs, and then focus on the line once we break into our, specific groups.
Yeah.
So we had film work throughout the whole week. So by the time we got to Saturday, we already knew, we typically basically knew the person, like as far as, all their habits, the tendencies when it comes to certain things they do when, like, either, I know for example, offensive linemen, some cases, some will lean back a little more when it's a pass. They'll be soft on their hand, but when it's when it's run, they'll be heavy-handed, ready to run block. So just those, simple things like that throughout the week. By the time we get to Saturday, we're fully prepared, ready to go. We know the game plan. So just taking that and going to sellers, it's a little different, but you go initial call, figure out what they need, why they're looking to sell. And like I said before, you want them to be the star of the conversation.
Yes.
You want to hang on every single word that they say, just so they know that you're hearing them and you want to solve the problem. So hearing that on their first initial call, you take it and you know exactly how to make them flow throughout the rest of the pipeline. For example, a seller may be dealing with a probate. Somebody passed and they inherited the home. So obviously you want to start with empathy, show them, sorry for your condolences, everything like that. I'm here to serve you in any way I can.
Yep.
And from there you roll into your company's benefits, closing costs, leave anything in the home that you need. Obviously prized possessions, we give you, the time needed to get those out as well. Is there anyone else who need to be involved? Sometimes it's estates.
Yep.
From a deal we just closed, or not closed, but just locked up yesterday. So you're dealing with multiple people. So you have to make sure you're tailoring your conversation to their need, each individual person. So yeah, just taking that, it's almost like reading them. You have to read them on the first conversation, and then throughout, you know exactly how to push them through.
Yeah, that's rock solid.
Yeah.
Sales and negotiations is all rapport, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all building trust. If you can build trust with somebody, and I tell people a lot, like trust in many cases is built within the first 5 seconds of a conversation or meeting them in person, like people feel your energy, they feel your aura, right? So when you're on that call, and this is why like priming your brain is so important, similar to visualizing, right? Like you're studying it up, but you're walking into that seller appointment, or you're already ready to go when you jump on that phone with the belief in your heart that it's true, that it's already yours, right? Because belief is so powerful. And I think we overlook that in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah.
Which that's why it's so hard for a new wholesaler to step into the industry, because they don't believe it yet, right?
Yeah.
And it's biblical, right? If you believe something in your heart, it's already yours, right? So I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks for people, is they never have that confidence or that belief that it's possible, right?
They need proof of concept.
Need it. That's why it's so important to have a mentor, right? To have a community of people in your corner who can, one, help coach you, right? Who can take you through that sales process, to show you the steps, to show you the roadmap, to figure out how to take from step one, build rapport, right? And like you said, make that seller the star of the conversation, and then lead in from there. We don't even talk sales to the way end of that meeting, right? It's all just relationships.
Yeah. You're just introducing yourself and getting to know them.
Yeah.
And what they need. So yeah, you don't even really touch on it. They almost bring it up. Once you can build rapport, you build enough rapport on that first call. Yeah. They'll bring it up. They'll be like, look, so I've had some people say, look, man, I mean, obviously I know it's going to be at a discount because XYZ. What's the best you guys can do? And at that point, I mean, you can, obviously you want to make it a fair cash offer, and get that healthy profit on the back end. So yeah, man, just focusing on the relationships first. I know early on that's what I did, because I had no prior experience. Yeah. And for any other wholesalers out there, you don't need to be scared, on the acquisition side, or, people just coming into the game, because that's the best way to get into the game, I feel, in my opinion, because you can mold yourself, because you don't have anything from the past, like coming from, sales when it comes to cars, pharmaceutical, anything. So you can tailor just your personality to this business.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you touched on that, because I think a lot of people do take the used car salesman approach, but this business doesn't operate like that, right? Like used car salesman, you think of them chasing you off the lot like hard sell, trying to get you to get in that seat where they're lining up the numbers and trying to close you, right? Right. Real estate investing is almost the opposite, right? It's like, how can I serve you? Some people have a hard closer style, and it's effective, especially when you understand personality types. That's probably a conversation for a whole nother time, is we can do a whole podcast on personality types, right? But when you're dealing with a red seller who's real direct and stuff, like sometimes you got to be direct and punctual, and they just want to see that bottom line number, right? But 9 times out of 10, that service first approach, right? Really just putting people, understanding that every single person has a story, putting that in front of the sale, right?
And mirroring them, matching their tonality.
Yeah.
That's big. Cause I've had, you get to a point where, you're talking, if it's an older woman on the phone, you want to talk slow and make sure you're hearing every word, things like that, matching her. Your arm, like your military guy, they just straight to the point. They want to know what you do, why you're calling, get straight to the point. Yeah. So yeah, you just have to adjust it. But just matching a seller's tonality, mirroring them, repeating what they're saying when it comes to their needs, just so they know you're hearing them. That goes a long way in getting these deals locked up.
Absolutely. That's good. Let's talk about some of the first deals. So you step into this seat, right? You reached out through a post. This was after our first initial meetup, right? Took you on a cruise. We went and checked out that house. We didn't know at that point that you'd be stepping into the acquisitions role with the company. It was probably maybe a month, 2 months later that post went out. You reached out, and I'm like, whoa. I wasn't even considering an acquisitions manager in Colombia at the time. I was still kind of a small operation locally, right? I'm like, you know what? This would help maximize our efficiency, right? And Trey sent me a resume. He was real thorough. Like as far as my prospecting, that was one of my first hires. My process was not as thorough, right? But Trey took the initiative, sent me an email, had his resume lined up. I'm like, this dude was a linebacker for UMass. Well, check, right? Stepped in. But let's talk about after you came in the fold, we had probably a week of training. Pretty quick, right?
Oh, yeah.
Threw you out pretty quick. And I said, just focus on relationships first. Yep. Let's talk about those first couple deals. How did it feel stepping into a new environment, negotiating with the seller with something that completely different than you've ever done before?
Yeah, the first few, it was still some nerves there, just like, you before a game.
Yeah.
So that's how I approached it. You go in with the butterflies, and from there just give off that, confidence, say, hey, how you folks doing today? Like, just start the conversation like that. And from there, once you're walking through the property, just making sure they don't feel any sense of he doesn't know what he's doing or what he's talking about. You just want to give off confidence. But yeah, I can't even lie. The nerves do get there, but you can't let them get the best of you. But yeah, going through and locking up a few deals like within the first 1 to 2 months, because I know I was starting out doing it like on the side. Like I'll get out for work, go home, I have my follow-up sheet, and I'll run through the list from about 5 to 7 or 5 to 8 each night. And I was doing that every single day. And just doing that, it got me back into the flow of my football days of, I have this schedule. This is what I'm doing here. This is what I'm doing there. So it kind of got my mind back in that mode. So I fell in love with it once I locked up a few deals and saw that, man, this is real.
Yeah.
That's when I think after 3 or 4 months, I was like, yeah, I'm locked in. It's time. Yep. It's time. I think me and my wife went to, cause I think from one or two of those deals, I was able to, her family was going to Jamaica. She's from Jamaica. So we were able to go there. And once I came back, I was like, yeah, I'm locked in. I know I made the call to you. I was like, I'm locked in.
It's time. It's time. Yeah, we had that conversation. We're like, when is the perfect time to make the jump? Right? Let's make sure that us as a new growing company has the ability to sustain it, right? But man, yeah. Once you were all in, man, we were off to the races.
Yeah.
So what was the first deal that you locked up? Was it Pine Needle or was it Jones Street?
Pine Needle.
It was Pine Needle, right?
Yeah. Jones Street was a surprise.
Yeah.
Even to me.
That was a referral lead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was a surprise to me. Because, going there, looking at, the ARVs, being able to, I think we locked it up for 11,000. And I remember just pulling back the whole appointment. For those who don't know, pulling back is just saying, it may not be a fit for you guys. Because I think for the story of it, her mother was in assisted living. She didn't want to deal with the home anymore. So they didn't need to sell. They just wanted to. So
I feel like they kind of did need to
sell.
Yeah. They were an older couple themselves, right?
Yeah.
Didn't really have the ability to manage a property that was sitting vacant. I think they were in a distress point where they're like trying to push the easy button, right? How do we get out of this?
Yeah. Because I think they were somewhere around like the 30s at first when we initially got there in person. And I was just walking through, pointing things out, saying, yeah, I know it may not be a fit, but we would love to serve you guys. And I remember, with the service first thing, that got down to it. Yeah, we were able to figure out that she just wanted to use those funds to cover her mother's expenses. So once I found that out, I just remember needing to focus on pain points. So I'll say, yeah, we can do this for you just because I know your mother, you need to cover those expenses so it's not a burden on you. And I just kept bringing it up throughout the appointment, kept bringing it up just here and there. So toward the end, once I gave our offer range, I think it was somewhere between 9 to whatever it was. We ended up settling at 11.
Yeah.
And when she said yes and signed, even in my mind, I was like, wow.
Holy cow. The house wasn't in that bad a shape.
It wasn't.
No.
I was like, wow, she really, they really needed this and needed the help. So just even that, it helps you when it comes to knowing that you're helping people.
Yeah.
Like in need. So, yeah.
That's a good point. I want to lean in a little bit more with where you talk about pulling back, because I think a lot of newer people in this space don't understand that tactic when it comes to sales and negotiations, right? And I would say John Martinez is probably the perfect sales trainer that really paints this picture. Like he's one of the best in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
He actually reached out. He'll be on one of the upcoming podcasts again for the second time. But talk about the psychology with pulling back in your process.
Yeah. So first off, John Martinez has that was amazing to be introduced to him when you sent over that information, just to give me that foundation.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things he teaches, the main things he teaches is pulling back. Basically, it removes the stress from the seller. So when it comes to that, you would say, hey, you have to kind of, you almost feel
Hesitate.
like hesitate. You have some ums in there, sigh, like, so you say, I know you guys are looking, at 30K, but to be honest, based on repairs, comps within a mile, I'm almost even embarrassed to give you that number, where we would need to be. And, people most times will say, oh, no, you're fine. Yeah, just give it to me. It won't hurt my feelings. And they laugh it off or something. Like, well, I mean, the best we could possibly do will probably be somewhere in between 11 to 15,000. And I know he says use odd numbers too. But in most cases, since you removed it and said, we're not a fit, you might as well keep it as a rental if it's a tenant in there, just to keep that monthly cash flow. Then, that's a great option. Like, you just constantly want them to basically sell you the property.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one example of a way you can kind of just work a seller as you're walking through in person, just to get to that point where, because honestly, if you just did that straight off, they say, oh, I'm looking for 30. Be like, oh, okay, we can be 11 to 15.
Yeah, you lost it.
Yeah, you lost the deal. It's blown up.
Yep.
But when you remove the stress by saying, yeah, this isn't a fit for, I'm almost embarrassed, all those types of things, it just makes them, say, okay, he wasn't pressuring me. He seems like a good guy. He knows his stuff, repair wise, what needs to be done. And most times you can walk away with that deal. Not every time, but in most cases you'll walk away with the deal.
That's strong. Yeah. I like the part where you said it relieves the stress and the tension, right? Because going back to the used car salesman, you're not the one chasing them off the lot, right? The psychology behind this is you're setting the stage in that relationship process where first thing you want to appear as is credible. Got to bring credibility to the table and at least talk like you know what you're talking about, right? But number two is you want to set the stage for, we really are here to serve, but we don't need this house. Like, we actually are going to be looking at 3 other houses this week. As much as I would love to buy this one, I don't need to, right? That's what we're telling them in their mind. And it really is, it's psychological, right? Where the goal with it is at the end of that conversation for them to realize their need for you. You're credible. You're focusing on service. You're building the relationship, and then you pull back.
Yep.
It's genius.
Yeah.
It's genius.
Yep. So, yeah, when you do that and, you tie in, I always like to say, if they get to the point where the numbers may not work, say, yeah, obviously, yeah, we're looking at, a few other properties, but obviously we want to make this one the priority. That's why we set this in-person appointment. So we're ready to set funds aside and we can get this closed within 3 to 4 weeks. we just want to make sure it's something you're 100% comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then I just shut up.
Yep. Just be quiet. Yeah, yeah.
Just get quiet.
Even if there's awkward silence, you just let it sit.
And see what their reaction is, and then go from there and lock it up.
Yep. If you guys are listening to this, that was tons of free nuggets. You just saved yourself $4,000 of coaching right there. Yeah. For real. Mm-hmm. That's nuts. Yeah. So let's talk about Pine Needle a little bit, because this is an interesting one. It was really low-end house. House was in shambles. But let's talk about where that led to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. So for Pine Needle, basically for that one, that was a lower end rental. So got that one locked up. And they were actually knew some of my, family members, locally through the church. So basically, we had a friendship after that. Met them at their home. And also did a follow-up probably 6 months later just to see how they were doing. Yeah. Spoke with his wife, and she was like, we're actually dealing with a commercial property right now. We had listed, but it's, that listing agreement's running out. Would you guys be interested in looking at it? I said, sure. Sure. We can definitely do that. So then we met, I think it was a week or two later. And after, I think it took about a month, a little longer than that.
We're talking 6 to 8 months, dude.
I'm trying to think.
So I want to say from the first selling Pine Needle contract to the office was probably close to a year. Mm-hmm. Time frame's close there. But when you actually, so basically checking up, right? Fortune in the follow-up is the lesson with that. Mm-hmm. Relationships already in place. They already trusted us. We delivered on the first house. Commercial property comes up, talked with it. Dude, when you had that initial conversation and we looked at it, right? We both looked at it together online. Yeah. I'm like, wait, this is on Hardin Street. Mm-hmm. Hardin's right across from 5 Points, which is the college university area.
Not far.
Locked down from the tax office. We might be onto something here, right? So long story short, I'm like, Trey, this is it, bro. This is going to be our office. Yep. Go for it. Get that bad boy. Dial in on that quarterback, right?
Yep.
Straight up.
Yeah. So from there, we
Dude, from there it was like 6 to 8 months. Yeah. If you remember, because at first their son wanted to get in here and fix it up. At first they wanted to sell, and we kind of dove into that conversation for a week. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Our son wants to get in there and fix it up. Not sure if it's going to be a good fit. So from there, it was like every month for 6 months or so that you followed up, dude. And finally,
because he was going to do some type of shop or something like that, but
it was going to be a CBD shop.
Oh yeah, CBD.
He wanted to open a CBD shop.
So after that, just following up each month, got to the point, our son's not going to go through with it. And then from there, it took another month to finally agree on a price. Yeah. So we still got it at a discount because it needed a full rehab. Like, it was falling apart. Yeah. But yeah, man, that turned into where we sit today. Where we sitting today.
Yeah. That just shows you where massive action gets you, right? Shows you where follow-up gets you with sourcing more opportunities, investing in relationships, checking on people for the point of checking on their well-being, right? But as a result, more opportunities come, right? And I think a big part that wholesalers miss in this industry is after the sale, after the close of a house, they don't reach out or show as much appreciation, right? So simply sending a card saying, hey, thank you so much for working with us, in the sale of your home.
Or, at the closing, you can give them a little, gift at the closing. Or just keep your follow-ups going with them. Yeah. You can tailor, like when it comes to the funnels, you can tailor messages even after you close to continue to follow up, to check in, kind of customize them on a case by case, but even to check in after that.
Yep. We got a couple other sellers that are still on follow-ups that they have identified they have another house that they're considering selling. Guaranteed when it comes to that decision point, who they'll be working with.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. Service
first and rapport. Build those relationships.
I love it, man. So let's talk about where we are today, right? First, lots of traction in Colombia, building that up. But what we've seen in this market over the past, we'll say 2 years, but it's gotten real serious this past year.
Mm-hmm.
This market has become incredibly saturated.
Yeah.
Well, if we're being honest, the entire nation inventory's at an all-time low. It's never been this low ever.
Yeah.
Right? There's way more buyers than there is houses, right? On the retail side.
Mm-hmm.
But locally in the Colombia market, like, competition is so tight right now, it's hard to source consistent deals, which has forced us to adopt more of a virtual model, right?
Yeah.
COVID kind of brewed the perfect storm where a lot of people got locked at home. Let's be honest, everyone got locked at home.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses started to realize, wow, we might not need as much brick and mortar. We can adopt more of a virtual model,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it positioned us to start stepping into some of these virtual markets to use the strategies and the processes that we already had in place and just mold them into something new, right?
Yeah.
So we're touching down on a lot of these southeastern markets known as tertiary markets, right? It's a linear market where you're not seeing a whole lot of like big time appreciation, but you don't see as much of an influx. And the benefits here is lots of buy and hold investors, right? Lots of landlords, some hedge fund activity and stuff. Let's talk about how that model is and how we've positioned it and how your sales process has pivoted a little bit from meeting people in person to closing over the phone.
Yeah, so closing over the phone, it is a little different. The first part, obviously setting the stage, all of that is the same. But you just have to ask, when it comes to property, qualifying, you have to ask a few more questions. So, as, whether we work with a hedge fund, we need to know if it's a annual or a month-to-month lease. Things like that. You have to figure out decision makers on that first call.
Yep.
So who do I need to speak with? Because you need to speak with everyone. Another big thing that comes up a lot, is they may want to meet somebody. They may want to meet a representative.
Yep.
So you need to build out your field agents, or people call them bird dogs, whatever you call them. You have to have at least one in each virtual market.
Yep. To
be your company's face. So you won't, because in most cases, if they request to meet somebody, it's going to kill the deal if you can't.
Oh yeah.
If you can't have anyone there ready. So you have to build that out. What else do we do on that? Inspection wise, you also have to have either, when it comes to hedge funds, for us or in our company, we have one of their inspectors inspected. Or you could have a virtual bird dog to go out and take photos and meet sellers.
Yep.
Almost operating as an acquisitions, sort of.
And the ultimate goal is to raise them up in an acquisitions position, right? But you're forced to create more standard operating procedures, right? More
Mm-hmm.
SOPs to make sure that you have clearly defined processes for every single wing on your team, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about a lot, real estate is a team sport,
Oh, yeah.
right? Which is why I love the sports analogy so much, because we go into battle together, right? Like, we're trained up, we do the work, we put in, we work on our ground game so that we're prepared when we step onto that field,
Mm-hmm.
right? So understanding our unique role inside of the organization, right? And we focus on becoming the best person that we could be to meet those standards, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you have to have the right people in the right seats, right? One personality, a CD personality type, or a S and a C personality type is not going to fit as well as an acquisitions manager as much, because they're not as forward speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all a challenge, right?
Yeah.
We talk about it a lot. Like, there's so many moving parts, and there's times that at the end of the day, like, my mind's ready to explode just putting it together. But when you have the right systems in place and you have the right people in the right seats, you start to gain traction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Start to build that momentum, and eventually that momentum builds and builds and builds. But man, it's all a process.
Yeah, definitely. It's a process, but I wouldn't be doing anything else. So I love it, man. So it's a constant constant things you have to tweak, of course. But on the virtual side, just working, main things you need to work on is having bird dogs and field agents there. Having either realtors that you may work with, because of course you're going to get some retail leads that you can possibly send their way.
Yep.
Just to monetize, you want to monetize every single lead, because it's almost like you say, like gold.
Yep.
Every lead is gold. So that's the main thing to focus on in a virtual market.
I love that. Yep. If you guys haven't seen the buckets, it's a real short concept, right? You can go back a few videos and I'm sure see it if you're on YouTube, but we'll be painting a bigger picture with the buckets on every lead gets touched, right? So important, because those leads really are gold. And in this industry, we're mining for that gold, right? You got to dig through all the dirt, all the opportunities. It takes way more leads than you think to convert to a deal in many cases, right? But that's why you got to be consistent. You got to continue marketing, and you got to make sure that you're battle ready and trained up for when that deal comes through, so you're ready to capture that opportunity.
Yep. Yeah, so it's big to have your team trained up and ready. You know, just like the sports analogy, you have to prepare. You have to get film work in.
Oh, yeah. That's
you
big.
have to get film work in. And, fail forward and get in the trenches, even though you may feel like you're not ready.
Yep.
That's the only way you're going to learn, on the job, in the field. Like, that's the only way you're going to learn.
So that's a perfect bridge to, let's talk about vision with where we're going, right? The whole real estate investing movement. We have the sales acquisition side, real estate side of the business is flowing, right?
Yep.
We're working like a machine, starting to build a new pillar in the business, which is going to be the educational piece, right? So we're painting the picture, we're creating the systems and putting together the content so that we can empower more investors, right? It's like a natural law of leadership. You got to help other people grow into the best they can be, and that raises the tide for all ships, right?
Yep.
Let's talk about where we're going with the movement.
Yeah, so with the movement, it's more of it's going to be obviously a course coming out here soon. We're going to dive into the acquisition side of things, give a overview of what you need when it comes to your company if you want to scale. And here locally, we're going to also be focusing on JV relationships with any wholesalers who may have trouble moving the deal.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the whole umbrella of it. But we're on the acquisition side, we're going to dive into, all the things that we use in our business that have been working, things that haven't been working, just so you can miss those pitfalls.
Yep.
in your journey. So yeah, we're going to cover it all. And focus on, building out locally people who need some help, or, on the virtual side, we'll be holding Zoom calls and things of that nature.
Yep. Lots of cool opportunities coming up. So you guys stay tuned. There will be links in the description. We'll have the curriculum for the courses coming out within the next month. So we're getting ready to launch right before summertime. But before then, we'll have our first meetup at the new office coming up in May. You guys stay tuned for that as well.
Yeah.
And we're building. It's time.
Yep. It's definitely time.
Yeah, we've been prepping. Put the work in preseason. We're ready.
Yep.
It's game time.
Definitely. This championship time.
It is, right? Yeah.
This is championship time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ultimate goal is just to have an impact, right?
We
want to get out there and not only like crush and dominate, but we want to build the network and bring people up with us, right?
Definitely.
Which is the whole meaning of movement. Who's coming with us?
That's even more fulfilling, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah.
So that's what's up. Guess that concludes it. For any of you watching, you can find Trey Seals on just about all platforms.
Yeah.
He'll be with us. Lead acquisitions. Anything else? Any other places they could find you or ways to connect?
Instagram, it's Trey Seals, REI, same on Clubhouse, or on Facebook.
Yeah.
Either one. Yeah.
Love it. Till next time, you guys make sure you give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell button so you get new notifications every time we have new content coming out. Until next time, stay great.